Hi, Antano and Harini. Welcome to this BW Wellbeing Dialogue on being well and keeping your energy and spirits high. So, how are you feeling, Antano and Harini? How's Chennai treating you?
Oh, very good, Anurag. It's been an incredible opportunity to be at home and just work on your well-being. When the world is fighting with another type of well-being, and it's lovely to be here with you on this.
Yeah. So, what have you been doing last 50 days? When you say it's lovely to work on your well-being, I'm sure you're advising your clients, your people who seek your counsel. I'm sure that's kept you busy. But on a personal level, how it gave you a chance to kind of reimagine yourself, what you practice, how did you preach, what you preach, how did you practice that, right? So, tell us what is in the last 50 days, what's been your schedule, what have you been thinking, and tell us a couple of learnings from there. And you can go first, and then I can get Harini.
Okay, so Anurag, one of the things that we share as a message to people is that we say, don't be satisfied with the best version of you, because you are born with unique gifts, but then there are complementary gifts, there are neighboring gifts. If you attach and add to who you are, will complete your rarity, the unique impact that you can make in the world. So there was a point in time when focusing on your strengths is the best strategy, because there's nothing you could do about your limitations. And I still endorse the thought that you got to focus on your strengths and use the best of your strength. And in addition to that, if you can identify strategically what are some of the missing capabilities, issues that you need to develop, you need to improve, then your strengths will have an exponential impact. So one of the core philosophy of excellence installation technology that Harini and I have been working on is, how does a person evolve? Like if you look at somebody every 10 years, they seem to look like a completely different person, the way they relate, the connection, their understanding of humans, their understanding of themselves, their emotional capabilities, it all seems to be very different. Every 10 years, on an average, people evolve. And they can't do the things that 10 years ago that they do right now. And there is actually no scientific way to design how you want to evolve. And Harini and I want to revolutionize the personal evolution technology. Because personal evolution, the only way people evolve is from experiences, life experiences. Suddenly, if someone takes you and puts you as a CEO in a company, the life experiences you will have managing the P&L, the people, the responsibilities will evolve you. If someone takes you and puts you in a 3-level position higher than where you are, it will force you to evolve. If there are challenges that come in your home, if there are finances you have to manage, it evolves you. So life experiences, the number of people you handle, the number of connections you maintain, the depth at which you maintain those connections, they evolve an individual. And for an average, a typical successful person, the evolution cycle happens every 10 years. Now, if you randomly take someone and put them as the CEO for a company, they might just crash the company. So, because they may not have the personal resolve, they may not have the strategic thinking. So these are what I call as capabilities. So before someone has some life experiences, they need to be ready for it. They need to have the capabilities and preparation for it. And I think about for centuries, for thousands of years, humankind has been struggling with how do you bring in transformations. When someone struggles with something, they have a nervousness or they have a hesitation or they have a mental block. It's in the dark age. We still don't know. Like, we know how to travel, we know how to communicate using telephone and mediums, but we don't know how to have personal transformation in a moment. Personal transformation has always been something that takes a long time, like a year, like 2. But 50 years ago, when neuro-linguistic programming came into the equation, NLP kind of brought in this concept that a person can transform in minutes, in days, instead of taking years together. So then the question Harini and I have is, if you can transform in minutes, then what do you do for the rest of the year? And to me, the answer is you have newer life experiences, you can tap into newer opportunities, and that will allow you to evolve very differently. So what if you can look at it from the other side? What if you can think of how you want to evolve, how you want to design you want to evolve, then think about the life experiences that will allow you to evolve in that way. And stack up and make a list of transformations that you want to experience today. And the technology to do that is called excellence installation. And that's what Harini and I have been busy working on. Throughout this COVID, we've been working with doctors. In fact, there are doctors who are consulting the Ministry of Health. We're working with the safety of doctors. We've been using excellence installation technology to help families stay together and not fight. So that's the professional front. For us, the way we have applied excellence installation technology is Harini and I have deeply looked at what are some things that are missing in us as individuals, that if we were to improve, will allow us to impact our rarity. And so we've done...
Just to make it real, while I don't want to know the 100% details, tell us one thing, for example, you think you need to improve on. I mean, I've interacted with you. I don't know what you can do. It's almost perfect, but
it's going to be something that you wouldn't at all suspect, Anurag.
Okay, go ahead, tell us.
It's my singing.
It can't be your hair. It can't be your hair. Right?
It's my singing. I've been working on my singing for the last 30 days.
No, but can I tell you, and you're authentic, so I believe you. But when I was younger, I went for job interviews 25 years back. Last 20 years, I've been an entrepreneur. And they would ask me, what's your strength? What's your weakness? And I would tell them that, I would tell strengths like exaggerated or real, both cases. And weakness, you always give a weakness, which is actually, I don't know a foreign language. So actually, you don't give out anything. You've given me an answer like, I'm working on my singing. It's not giving out anything.
Oh, I can tell you why it's important and why it is an honest answer. In fact, I've been working on my singing for 20 years, Anurag, because one of my teacher, I used to go to the choir. I was thrown out of the choir 12 times. And one of my music teachers, she picked me up and she looked into my eye and she said, Anno, you know what? I would love to do anything for you. I would do anything in my capacity for you. But it's a miracle if you ever sing. And for me, singing has multiple impact metaphorically. One is that I'm the kind of person who's saying that anybody can develop any capabilities. And in our culture and across the world, people believe that singing is a gift from God. And if you're not born with it, God is not going to give you that gift ever.
And from what I have known of Antano for like the last 10 years, like in fact, my first interaction with him, like within the first couple of interactions, he recorded this song called Smile, Boyzone, like smile and never less smile.
Yeah, and I love it too.
Gave me the worst rendition ever. Okay,
I don't want to do it at the right of the start. It would be nice to end it with a song that you want to sing. Maybe the same song. It brings a smile on everyone's faces.
So he to me.
So go ahead. Harini, a little louder.
I was telling you that he recorded that song and sent it to me, and he said, so I'm a playback singer, right? I mean, at the time when he met me, I was pretty much in the peak of my career and in music. And he's like, Harini, tell me, how is it sounding? Like, where can I improve? And would you go and tell a man who is going wrong at the first note and every note after that? You can't give feedback, right? But from where he was to where he's gotten, because music schools pretty much pick up people who are already, who can be on tune, who can be on pitch. But for me, I thought Anno was pretty much tone deaf or pitch deaf back then. But the leap he's made is not something that any music school can.
And Harini, tell us what has made him achieve that. What has enabled that leap? Go into the depth and how other people can relate to it. What can they learn from his leap? What can other people learn from Antano's leap?
So Antano's always been from the tech background. He's been like a tech geek, and today in this world, we're all like, if you're good at technology, then build on your strengths, get super good at it. But our message has always been, well, great at it, but what about the other side, right? What about arts? What about artistry? Because it taps into a very different aspect of you. Now, it's very easy for Antano to say, no, I can't do music, especially when teachers are saying, and he's been kicked out of the choir. But for some reason, he's always been so resilient, and he knew intuitively that him making a leap in his singing would mean making a leap everywhere in every aspect of his life. So he was missing fundamental core capabilities. Like if I were to do, he would do, and to him, it'll sound the same. He would think that, okay, then I would say, then if I sing again, he would try to, make it softer. He would go, and he would still not know that they're actually different things. That's very, very, very fundamental. Now, to somebody who knows music or even has some basic music sense, they would say that those two notes are very different. But for him, they sounded the same. He went about going and building that capability, which is unbuildable in a formal setup otherwise.
So the message, Anurag, is that anything is possible for anyone in terms of capabilities. Just because you made choices in your childhood about what kind of skills and capabilities you want to develop doesn't mean you have to stick with it for the rest of your life. In fact, as humans, what we want to do keeps changing. Our aspirations keeps changing, and that's part of evolving. And sometimes you want to complete the other side of you, like I tell artists, also come and learn something about logic, about maths, and you might be surprised how it all integrates and enhances your art.
Think about Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
He was such a great physicist, but he was also one of the most amazing soulful violinists. Steve Jobs was...
He didn't dabble with violin. He was a soulful violinist.
Like, he was really good at it. He could play sonatas after sonatas. We take Isaac Newton. He was great at all his physics stuff. In addition to that, he was really good with sculpture and stuff like that. You take Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, I mean, he's probably one of the reasons why we have pretty looking fonts today on the computer. I mean, he had an impeccable idea for design.
And typography.
So every legend in the past has not just been really, really, really good at what they do, but they've really broken the glass ceiling in a domain which is completely opposite of theirs. And typically it's something to do with artistry in the other domain.
And what it does, Anurag, is it opens up an area in the brain that is responsible for what neurologists call as cross-mapping. It's how do you relate one thing that you learn in one domain in a completely different domain. And geniuses are always in a zone where they can cross map. They can look at a moon and relate it with the lady. And for us, it looks like poem, but what actually it does in the brain is it opens up the center region of the brain that does something called as cross mapping. It's like applying a learning that you have, let's say from writing magazines into family and relationships. And for me, I think when I say I've been learning music, I've not been just singing for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I've been practicing 6 hours every day. In fact, my classes start at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm training with one of the voice coaches who's helped a lot of celebrities in this country. He wakes up for me at 4 o'clock and we go through a drill till 8 in the morning. And then I complement it with guitar and piano. And the reason I think it's important for me, besides everything else I've told you, is because Harini and I, our work is to do installations. And what I mean by that is we tell stories that actually changes people. And our stories have a one-on-one impact. It's generated on the fly. It's delivered. It's not rehearsed. It's delivered. It's sequenced. We do something called as nested stories, where a story starts and it opens into another story and it opens into another story.
And the stories are directly mapping into the unconscious processes of another person. It's very personalized, and so when I'm saying unconscious processes, it means the processes are not in their conscious awareness. Our stories are a direct one-on-one mapping to them, and then we help them change from there, which is why people find themselves literally changing in minutes. Sometimes they sit and they say, I don't know what
beautiful
happened.
thing is, in the recent days, we've noticed that when I'm doing these stories, when we blend in music, when we bring in instruments, it seems to have a much deeper impact on the listener. If you're doing this live, I'm telling stories and there's an instrument playing in the background. And Harini and I see a possibility where storytelling and singing kind of comes together. It's not separable from the other. And we feel like our work of installations can have a quicker, larger impact when we bring these two together.
And with Antano's steady improvement in his musical capabilities, from where I saw him 10 years ago to now, I see a direct impact in what it's doing with the work that we're doing with people, including the installation events that we do en masse with like a large group of people. I see how it's just unbelievable. It's at least like
so you're like talking to 300 people and their eyes are awake, but they're not blinking. It's like they're in a different type of trance. It's not sleep, it's not hypnosis, it's not with closed eyes, but their pupils are dilated, and then your voice changes into a melody. And the impact it has on them, Anurag, um, is blissful to say. And so this is what I meant by a complementary skill that takes your core and makes it even more powerful. And we feel that any legend has to not just work on what they're gifted with, but they need to find out areas that can kind of like 100 times strengthen what they already bring in.
So, Harini, give us a story of one or two individuals that when you started with were very tough to transform. They truly transformed, and tell us some learnings from, tell us things that people can do. Give us the hope. Because right now, a lot of people are struggling with transforming themselves. There's SMEs whose businesses have been decimated. CEOs and leaders are lost because they're dealing with something that is of a different proportion and there's no end in sight, right? So it is a truly VUCA world. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So how can people in this adversity, in such a tough situation, transform themselves and be future ready and really achieve what they wanted to achieve before COVID?
Yes, Anurag. So we had this. I'm going to give you two, possibly three very, very different examples. One from the corporate, one from the artsy area. One of my fond memories is of that of our work with A.R. Rahman's group of underprivileged children. And I particularly want to take this example because those were a group of underprivileged children, which means they don't even have the basic access to certain privileges that you and I have. They belong to really humble backgrounds, and they're working, and they have to go to school. And Rahman adopted this group of children, and he got like the best teachers from around the world, like violins and violas and cellos and double bass teachers from all around the world. And he wanted to have the best orchestra, and they've been learning for 3 years, and they've been doing like pretty well. But somehow he didn't feel like they were launch ready, or he didn't know how long it could possibly take, because there were very basic issues that they were battling with. So we took them on as a project, and I'm talking about like 7-8 years ago when we did this, where we took them up, and each of them individually, we helped fix each of their personal limitations, including stress and anxiety and unable to learn or getting nervous or anxious and all of that.
And the belief in
their belief, like some of them believe, like, I mean, how can I possibly be a musician? I mean, my father makes tea, my mother is a maid, and somehow I have to struggle and at least get a degree and get a job, and that's the only way I can bring my family out of the situation they may be in. So none of them from the bottom of their hearts even believe that it's possible that they can make a career out of music, despite being chosen by, you can't even expect a better opportunity than what they've been given. But the challenges that they were dealing with could have taken 10 years, could have taken even 15 years to overcome, and some of them would even have dropped out, succumbing to the challenging situations that they've always been exposed to. But what we did is, even though their situations were the same, we helped them individually develop a different response naturally in those situations. And the outcome of that was, in 6 months, they had gotten so good with their skill and their art that they were ready. Within 8 months, Rahman launched them as a Sunshine Orchestra. It's because in those 8 months, they had quite a bit of a leap. And from then, they performed in the United Nations concert.
In fact, I remember Rahman mentioning that he'd been working with them for 3 years, and he suspected at this rate, they may not be ready even after another 3 years.
So we were able to do that for them, like literally time compressed, the time that they would have taken.
And what did you do to them? Give us like a sense of what changed and how did you change it?
The first thing we changed, Anurag, is we changed their inner belief about the possibility that they could actually be a musician. Now, I want to talk about belief a little. There's one thing to believe, saying, I do believe, and affirmations. But placebos do work. When you give an injection and give water and tell someone it's actually medicine, there is a different kind of a shift in belief than the person saying, I believe and I believe. It's what I call as an unconscious belief shift, which is not that the person is saying, I want to believe this, but it's like if I ask you what is 2 plus 2, and you would say 4. And if I say, are you sure? You would say yes. You're not even thinking about it. You don't need to affirm 2 plus 2 is 4 because it's so obvious to you. Can I make it obvious to them? It was obvious to Rahman, it was obvious to everyone else that,
But
you know,
except for them.
they could be great musicians, but it wasn't obvious to them that given everything that they had already acquired, that they could be that. That was one. The second thing we had to do was we had to let them overcome their bad memories. Because when people go through unpleasant situations, when they are, hurt, when they're depressed, when they face troublesome life experiences, people tend to overlearn from those unpleasant experiences. An analogy I have is someone was driving in the car, they met with an accident, they saw a poor dog far away. The brain generalized in such a way that whenever they saw a dog anyway, they would get remembered of the accident and they would go into the same fear. Now, when people, so when these people saw their mother and father fighting or them being hit hard, or maybe one guy even saw their house burn, when they see things like this, it forms an imprint. And then it kind of leaks into other areas of our life that is absolutely unrelated. So can you clean it up?
Sometimes tends to impact for a really long time. So we think all of add up for them.
So that when they think back at the same memory, then it looks like a movie. It's a natural process. When something unpleasant happens to you after 20, 30 years, when you look back at it, it's a faded memory. It's distant. It looks like a movie. But the whole idea of NLP is, can you compress it? Can you take a natural process and make it happen on demand instead of waiting for time to make it happen?
In addition to that, we stacked up further other changes for them and development of certain capabilities. Like one of the things was, how do you learn from the genius that's in front of you?
How do you learn? And how do you learn from a genius? I'll tell my kids to learn from me.
One of the ways
basically to learn from my wife. That's what I mean.
About how you learned how to speak. How did you learn how to walk? I'm talking about the very fundamental.
By observing and making an effort.
And without analyzing. Imagine.
And without saying I can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
You thought that if he can do it, so can I.
Or you didn't think anything at all. You just did it. That's the best thing about children.
That's the best way to learn. Right. And somehow it's not easy as adults to be able to do that because you're thinking, can I, will I? Your attention is so much on the inside and the internal dialogue and doubts that there's very little attention on actually grasping what's going on. So think about how a child learns something as complex as language. I mean, language is so complex. There's grammar, there's syntax, but none of us learned punctuation or syntax or grammar. Like you knew how to speak your mother tongue fluently before you formally went and learned it in school. So we go back and teach people how do you learn just the way you're meant to learn as a gifted human that you are. Because if you can talk, if you can speak a language, and if you've learned how to walk, it means you know how to learn. So the work that we do with people, whether they're children or adults, is we help them get, literally park aside all the corruption in the learning process and get to the fundamentals, like just go back into the same state of learning that a child does. Now, it sounds so easy, but it's very difficult.
In fact, John Grinder calls it a know-nothing state. And when he demonstrated it to a set of monks, the monks said, hey, we take 20, 30 years to arrive there with careful rituals every day. How did you do it? And John, of course, replied saying, new code NLP. But the idea is our neurology has a built-in circuitry called mirror neurons, imitative learning, to learn complex things that we can't consciously understand or process, but can absorb, can assimilate. And there is a state of mind that children naturally live in. It's called a know-nothing state of mind. If you mirror them, you would feel as if the mind is so empty, blank, and it's peaceful. If we can get an individual to experience that state of mind, not while meditating, not while sleeping, not while they are doing what they have to do. In this case, when the guy is playing a violin, can he be in a know-nothing state? Can he be in the state of mind a child would be when?
So it's being in know-nothing is being in the now.
being in the now so much that your attention is on what it needs to be at.
On the
nothing
outside.
else.
And your neurology has the freedom to mirror. You're not analyzing it. You're not analyzing the now either. It's just, you're putting your neurology on autopilot so that your mirror neurons can kick in.
And this is the most fundamental capability that we work on for all of our clients. And then what happens as a consequence of that is they're anyway surrounded by so many people around them who are good at things that they may not be good at. It could be somebody who's great at doing presentations. It could be somebody who knows how to make decisions even in really, really tough situations. It could be somebody who just doesn't lose his cool no matter what. Now, somehow when they've developed this capability of unconsciously learning in the purest form, they find themselves, like beautifully assimilating these capabilities from people around them in their workspace, at home, and all of that. So this is one of the very core things that we did for these kids.
One of the reasons that adults find it difficult to do is because of ego. A lot of times unconscious assimilation means you're allowing yourself to be the other person for a while, which is the basis of empathy as well. Because when your mirror neurons get into play, you start to feel like the other person. And in Japan, they have a proverb that says, when you learn, you stick to the rules, you become the other person, and then you break free from it, and then you create your new styles. But in today's society, everybody wants to create their new style even before they have learned what they need to learn. So there's also a bit of humility and letting go of the ego that a child doesn't need to do, because a child is already free from such corruption.
There are other basic things that we work with them for, like emotional mastery. Like some of them are really nervous in the context of being asked to play or perform. Like, so sometimes the teacher would single out one student and say, okay, you play this. And then they would, they would play it wrong, or they would be scared, and then everybody else would be laughing, so there's this fear, nervousness, performance anxiety. These are real challenges. Now you can give people advice, you can tell
So
them.
how can people get on top of fear? How can they get on top of anxiety? Give us few tips that our viewers and readers can possibly use them to be able to get on top. I know you would want them to do your course, but that for later. But whatever you can share here.
So I think the first thing to recognize, Anurag, is that these are biochemical responses, which means it's not in your control. It's not necessarily your choice. When someone becomes aware that they are nervous, they're already nervous. So I think what the viewer needs to recognize is they don't necessarily choose to become nervous or choose to become angry in that situation, but it's after they become nervous or angry that they look back and respond. So the key here is to prepare for that possible future when they are in a good state. The mistake most people do is they get into a performance arena, they feel nervous, and then they try to do remedial act. But our recommendation is that you need to, when you are at your home, you will feel like you can conquer the world. But that's the time to prepare. That's the time to, in NLP, we call it future pacing. You actually play an image of you in that situation, and you see yourself as a third person would, like a camera would see you. And you see yourself in that situation, and you rehearse it mentally, like several times, until you're able to do it without nervousness. I mean, this procedure can take a long time. I mean, it can take weeks and months together. There are obviously NLP procedures that can shrink it down to minutes.
The reality is, Anurag, there may be millions of people in the world, and there's tons of free advice all over the internet as to how you should overcome anger and fear and nervousness and anxiety. But the truth is, if we've all heard things like, if you're angry, count from 10 to 1, or drink water, or just breathe deeply. But that doesn't work. When you're angry, you're really angry because the situation is tough on the outside. So no amount of conscious trying to, all of that is like, okay, this fire is burning and you're trying to put fire in it. I mean, you're trying to pour water. Sometimes it might be effective, but still it's for the moment.
But you need to call the fire department.
The work that we do is not putting out fire. The work that we do is whatever is causing the fire in the first place, to rewire and change and present your neurology with new choice. And the way to do that is not by following 1, 2, 3, 4 procedures every single time, like not 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of advices every time, but to do a procedure once and for all, when it's done end to end properly and tested by a qualified practitioner. then you'll notice that even 10 times after that, 20 times after that, 2000 times after that, even if you're presented with the most challenging situations, you'll find that you're not getting into those same states anymore. And that's the, so it's really hard because the world is so easily bought into what are the top 3 things to do to control anger or anxiety or nervousness. But the answer is really nothing. There's nothing that you can do with just about, if it's a challenge, it's a real challenge. You need a procedure. It's like if there's a surgery that needs to be done, there's no amount of advice that a doctor can give you that's going to change it. But if he does the surgery, then it's actually solved forever. The procedures that we do are very similar to that. It's a surgery without a knife.
So
it's a surgery which has no
yeah.
side effects in negative way.
If a person has to try and do something on their own, Anurag, what I would recommend is a slightly different form of visualization. So generally when people visualize, they look at the future being good. In NLP, we do something different. It's called future pacing. What we do is we look at a future as it is, but we don't see the situation changing. We see the person changing. So for example,
your response changes.
Your response changes. So let's say Alex is a person who gets angry in a particular situation. We would get, after we finish our work, we would get Alex to close his eyes and see a future where the same thing is happening. And Alex would see himself as Alex, as a third person. Like, if you were to see yourself on a movie screen. So Alex would see, that's called disassociation. Like when, there's a drug called ketamine. Doctors give it when they're doing surgery on you. What it does is it allows you to hallucinate like you're floating in the air and seeing yourself when the doctor's cutting you open. Technically, it's called disassociation, and it creates an effect where you are disassociated, you're disconnected from that feeling. So if Alex can disassociate, which means if he can see himself on the screen as a third person, and if he can see the situation being the same in the future, but he behaving differently, and if he can repeat this 100 times, 1,000 times, then when the situation actually comes, he will actually have a different response, which is very different
Fantastic.
from... Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, I want to ask you a real question because I've known you and I have experienced some of what you did, and maybe I should get back to it. And tell me, what are your top 3 learnings working with people over the last 10 years, which reconfirm what you do, and one that you were surprised that it wasn't true?
The biggest surprise for me, Anurag, and for Harini as well, is it came as a shock to us. It came as it kind of shattered our dreams for a while, because Harini and I started this company thinking we're going to create bio wearables and gadgets that can automate what NLP procedures does, so that people can wear a helmet and get the work done, and I don't need to be dependent on humans to do change work. But the shocking thing for Harini and me, the first learning, which kind of shook us, is that people don't really know what they need. And
they think...
Can
I'm going to elaborate
that with an example?
Yeah.
People really don't know what they need.
Yeah, people really don't know what they need. And I'll say that with an example.
In Delhi, they know. The day the liquor vents open, they just showed up. In Delhi, they clearly know. In some parts of India also. Serious note.
They know what they're craving for. They don't know what they need. And that's the difference. So, one of the examples I have for that is, Anurag, I had a man took a lot of efforts to come meet us one-on-one. And he said, and no, I really need you to help me with this. He kind of looked desperate. He said, I want you to help me stop procrastinating. And Harini and I looked at each other, and I'm like, this is the simplest thing we can do for anybody. Why does he look so desperate about it? And we started having a conversation with him. 5 minutes down the line, when we're talking about his work, you can see that his throat chokes, the muscles below his eyes, kind of tense, and there is a bit of a tension in his jaw. And then I would talk about his children or something, and he'll look normal. I talk about random events in the country, he'll be normal. When you go back to the work, he would again have the same responses. And I tested this 3-4 times. And then I stopped him and I said, it looks like you really don't like your job. In fact, it looks like you hate your job. And he said, obviously. And Harini and I were like really surprised. We were like, the picture I had was he was slapping himself. and he's come to me asking if I can help him slap him harder.
So may I ask a question, please?
Yeah, Kavi enjoys his job, so that I think right about it started to.
So wait, let me complete this. The
Yes,
interesting thing was, I asked him, why can't you find another job? And he had the strangest response, which kind of surprised me. He said, I have fear of heights. And I asked him, did it occur to you? Because he believes that if he gets another job, he may have to go to the second floor or third floor. And this is the only job in the world where he can work out of ground floor. And I asked him, did it occur to you that you can ask me to help you solve the real challenge? That we have solved phobias for thousands of people. And in fact, we actually help them get over the phobia of heights. We help them find a new job. But the thing is, when people are stuck in a problem like this guy with the fear of heights,
that he developed years ago.
After a few years, it becomes the foundation based on which all their other priorities are laid.
I can't do this. I mean, this happens way in childhood, right? Like there's a child that says, I can't learn maths, so I'm not going to take up science. So I will take up something else. But
yeah, I think I should link you up with my daughter, 16-year-old daughter. She's fantastic. She's very sincere, honest, very hardworking, and you know why. And you know, she shares a birthday with me. So there's no other reason. That's the only reason. No, it's because her mother really is herself very disciplined and has inculcated those values. But honestly, what you're saying is so true.
It is.
Yeah.
When they feel like so this person who says they're making a decision based on a very temporary limitation, like the guy that Antano was talking about, the person who came to him, he felt like he has a phobia of heights, and that's an uncurable thing. So now he's made that, you know, he's accepted that as a challenge.
It's become a core of his identity, and now he's trying to solve everything on top of it. And
so
actually,
20 years down the line, he's forgotten that is a real problem, and then he's trying to fix something else.
Anurag, I've helped some people who are paralyzed to get back movements. But you know what happens is when I meet somebody who's been paralyzed for more than 10 years, they never ask me to help them get back movements. They say, can you help me accept my limitation? When I meet somebody who meets an accident, and within the first year, if I meet them, they ask me, can you help me get back movements?
Is there anything at all that you could do that
they're at least trying? But if I meet someone 10 years after the accident, they're asking, hey, you know what? I feel bad that I can't walk. Can you help me not feel bad? It's a completely different ask.
And it's surprising, Anurag, the kind of ask people have. In fact,
give us a glimpse into that. Give us a glimpse.
So the first...
Kavi, isn't this fun?
Yes,
I would charge you for this. I would charge you, but next time. Yes.
So the first time, there's a lot of people.
And you know why I kept it Sunday? Because I'm very calm on Sundays. I slept enough. You know, I'm fully in it. I may have texted once, twice. But I'm enjoying. I'm getting what you're saying. I'm fully in this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm calm and I know that I'm very relaxed. So, you know, I'm really enjoying it. You know, I'm really learning from it, whatever, words you want to give. So, yes, Harini, you're telling me something.
So the first time a lot of people come in and they say, my work, I'm stuck, or there's so much politics at work and I don't know how to deal with it, or I'm getting sidelined, or I'm nervous and things like that. And they would even forget to talk about their family or the fact that they are having a difficult time at home. They're just very singularly on, their focus is on one aspect, and they feel like that is the problem, and if we fix that, everything else will change. Like the person who came to Antano and said, help me stop procrastinating and my life will change. But on the contrary, if I actually help that person stop procrastinating, it means he's going to do more of the job that he doesn't like. He's going to get more of a headache that he's already been getting. He's going to go and ruin his health 10 times more. So the ask that people have is not always...
So diagnosis is not right.
Yeah.
Or what is the problem?
Yeah. We've had people who come and ask, can you help me sleep less? I mean, who on earth would ask that?
My wife would want that to be done on me and my daughters. I was telling my daughter who's like me, she likes to sleep enough. And I tell her, beta, you do very well. Because that's the most important. I'm like that. For me, there's nothing more important than I'm a very different person the day I've slept well, which is 5-6 days a week. But there are 1 or 2 days in a week when something's on my mind, I've got late, and then the quality of sleep is not good. Or I eat a lot in the night. Mm-hmm. You know, the sleep is not. So, my daughter sleeps and I really encourage her. And she's very sincere and very honest, very, 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 touch wood, very good. But, jokingly, my wife thinks that she sleeps too much. And I keep telling my wife that that's okay. That's the best thing for health.
Right.
For mind,
When the brain is learning new things, it develops neurocortical pathways, and that demands a lot of energy and sleep.
Yeah.
Learning new things, dealing with a lot of.
I'm glad you didn't suggest 4 a.m. as an interview time. I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, we're just doing it now because this is the only free slot he had.
Okay. Good. So I asked you, what are the top 3 things
so this is
that
the
you
number one.
reconfirmed in your
The
practice of
number
last
one
10 years?
Telling you is the fact that we were shocked that the ask of people can be so different from what it should be, what their potential of. And in fact, it's to document this very same thing that before people come and meet us, we send them to a video room and I have a team that asks them, what is your expectation from your own life in the next 10 years?
That's actually the second thing, Harini. The second thing, Anurag, is we realize people don't have a memory of who they were. They have a memory of who they are now, but the memory of their past is inaccurate. They think they were always the same. It's like if you were to ask someone, hey, how were you different as a child? They probably wouldn't be able to articulate as much as their mother or father could, because as humans, we are observing the world, but we are not observing ourselves. Like they say, the brain is the only organ in the body that cannot feel pain. It can sense pain of every other organ, but it can't sense pain if somebody's walking on it. It's like that. And so Harini and I actually take a video of people when they come and we ask them, what do you want from your life 10 years from now? And we
ask them the video, and it's only after that they even come and meet us. And then we do our pieces of work with them, so we have a process, they go through all of that. And the work that we do is very iterative in nature, right? It's not like I do work with you now, okay, bye-bye, I don't see you ever again. No, it doesn't work that way, because I need to meet them in 3 months to see what's been the impact, who have they become as a result of what we've worked on. And now they have new life experiences, new challenges, and they need to get prepared for the next levels, right? And then we're doing the next set of changes. But before we do, we again ask them, what is your expectation from your life, from your own life? 10 years from now, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to create? What's the kind of impact that you want to create? What's the legacy that you want to leave behind? What are you here for? Like, what's the larger thing that you want to do? And we ask them that 6 months hence, 1 year hence, 2 years
and then
hence,
we
3
then
years
show
hence.
them a video when they first came and 1 year later. And I swear, a lot of times people say, "Wo kaun hai be?" Looking at themselves. They're like, who is that guy? Sometimes they swear.
They're literally shocked by who they were. Like, they can't believe that this is what I can't believe I came here all the way. I've invested the kind of time and money that I have. I knew something got me to to make the decision that I have to come to you guys, but I can't believe that is what I said in my first video interview with you. And then, so for them it's delightful. They're shocked at the same time. It's so delightful to see how they're thinking. They ask what they want to do, what they thought was possible, what they think is possible now has been changing, and it's changing in proportion to what they're able to do now. And so, like there was this social media challenge, right? There's this 10-year challenge, and you remember everybody put up, like from the celebrities to everybody put up these picture of 10 years ago, how did you look today, how are you looking? So it was called the 10-year challenge. It was huge, with the rounds like crazy. And it's like for the first time they're recognizing 10 years ago, this is how I was, 10 years.
But that only captured the photo. What we did was we captured their thinking, how they feel about themselves, how they think, their capabilities, their aspirations. We captured it across a year, and people were shocked to see.
And a lot of times, all the people,
how much they, like when they evolve, when you can actually take what would happen in 10 years and evolve them in like 2 years. They were really shocked. When they look at themselves, they can't believe, where's these the problems I had? I mean, did I have these problems? Is this what I came to you guys for? I can't even believe that was me. So I think the second turning point for us
So
was
the thinking is always it's a reflection of who you are at this point in time and what you think is possible. Your strategies and everything is in proportion to who you are at this point in time. So your asks are accordingly reflective of who you are right now.
Yeah, that's a very important point, Harini.
So,
in fact, when we first said that the diagnosis was wrong, the first point, what people ask is not necessarily what they need, but what people ask is a reflection of who they are at this point in time and how they think. In fact, by asking the question, when we ask someone the question, what do you really want? From their answer, you can actually size up their identity, their values, their beliefs, their capabilities, the kind of environment, the kind of environment they're from.
So I want to ask my last question, get Kavi. How can you change your belief system? That's the basis of whatever you do.
You need to have richer life experiences, and you need to be in a know-nothing state to really learn from those rich life experiences. And I think it's
sometimes experiences make you bitter rather than fitter, rather than being more positive. Sometimes those experiences may have created some kind of bitterness, discomfort, unpleasant memory, and hence that becomes the base for everything in future. So tell us how you can undo that and live a life that you always wanted to.
Yeah, so one of the fun things that we do in our programs, Anurag, is we actually teach people how to get over phobias. It's funny, some people have phobias of needles. We met a doctor who had a phobia of needles. And there are people who have, in fact,
it's like a politician having a phobia of speeches.
So
we had that too. We had that too.
Saying I have a phobia of banking.
We had that too. We had a politician from Tamil Nadu who had a fear of speaking in public. She would faint. But it's a fun thing to help people get over phobias. In fact, needles and dogs. And Harini used to, send them to. They would be like, you tell them dogs and they'll shiver, and then we'll.
Like me, I'm afraid of dogs.
And Harini would work with them, like 3 people for 30 minutes, and then they all will go. They'll pat the dogs, and they'll become best friends with dogs. Now, the principle of this phobia cure, Anurag, is that people don't have a fear of dog. They have a fear for the mental image they make of the dog. And if you can change how that image is made, if you can change its qualities, the size, shape, color, it's like a tape recorder. It's an automatic thing. It's not like visualization. It's an innate process. It happens in a millisecond. But if you can change the internal pictures that happen spontaneously, then you can have a different response to the phobias.
Like, how does somebody feel bitter now about something that happened, say, 5 years ago? It's how do they know how to feel bitter? It's not just going to happen.
And it's funny, Harini, you're saying that in relationships, husband, wife, and the wife will tell you, oh, but you said this 6 years back. Hello? I'm not necessarily talking of myself, but I'm generally saying, people, even in business relationship, but 6 years back on your conference, you got me to speak last.
So the way they hold that picture, the belief is, Anurag, they hold the pictures and the feeling, just the way they hold that fear towards the dog.
Each person creates their belief system. It's a complex mechanism of pictures that they're seeing in their head and sounds that they hear. It all happened at that point in time, but there's a way in which their body stores it and presents it to them every now and then when there is a trigger. The work that we do is change the structure of how it shows it to them and weaken it. So we strengthen useful beliefs and weaken unuseful beliefs
so imagine,
by intervening at a structural level for every individual.
So if I have to give you an analogy, imagine something happened and you've taken a photo of it and you enhanced it in Photoshop, made it 3D, added special effects and saved in your drive. We open the drive, open the picture, we use Photoshop to make it tiny, small, blurred, and then we save it back.
Fantastic.
In a way, when you think about
it's possible to rewire your belief. Kavi, you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So this is for Antano. Sir, when you read the book Frogs into Princes, what was your takeaway? What basically went through your mind that you came onto this path?
Kavi, good. I almost thought I'll miss your question, and I've been wanting to come back and ask you what was your question. When I read the book Frogs into Princes, what was my takeaway? Is that your question?
Yes, sir.
For me, for Frogs into Princes was a practical approach to the belief that who people are is not written in stone.
Okay, sir.
Because I had read a lot before that. I had read a lot of books on psychology, and I had read a lot of books on profiling people, a lot of psychometric tests, and because I was curious about the mind from the young age, and the basic assumption behind all of these psychometric tests and and profiling people comes from a space where they believe a person is the same.
Okay.
I don't believe a person is the same even as they are. Their behavior changes based on context. In home, when they're meeting strangers, when they're meeting colleagues, their personality is different. People are never the same. But what Frogs into Princes did is it expanded it further. It said that people don't have to have the same response in the same context forever. Who they are is not written in stone. The fact that when I read that book, I was also a very shy guy, an introvert. Not an introvert really, but someone who had only one friend, a science geek with whom I would sit in the back bench, and nobody would think that that person would be Antano 2 years later, who can talk about physics and entertain a group of people, talking about what they would have otherwise considered a boring subject. So I think Frogs and a Princess kind of made it real. It kind of showed that there are practical tools you can use to evolve, to change, to bring in layers and dimensions to you that you go after. And it can happen really fast. You don't have to wait 10, 20 years. It can happen in weeks, months, and you can really have new dimensions. And I think it kind of put me on a trajectory of it. And I think to answer Anurag's question and connect it to your question now, Anurag asked for 3 points. We mentioned 2. The third new learning that we had from our business all these years is I realized just like we have basic needs to drink food, to eat, to sleep, safety, to feel connection with people. These are basic human needs. In the same way, evolving is actually a very basic need. And I think people try to search for it in different ways. A lot of times when people search for what they say spirituality, I went to seek myself, I want to get the higher purpose of me. What they're really searching for is the basic human need to get better, to become better. And I think it's a very raw, primal, just as much as hunger and sleep. I think to be a better person than who you are is a raw need. And Frogs into Princes showed me that it is possible to achieve that continuously and repeatably and measurably in a very short time, again and again and again.
Okay, so sir, you spoke about unconscious assimilation.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me a little bit about NLP modeling?
Okay. Where is this coming from, Kavi? Like, what specifically would you want to know around that?
Like what NLP modeling?
Topic. Yeah, so it's a broad topic. If you could tell me what your thinking is.
So just what NLP modeling basically is, what is it exactly? What does it mean?
Okay, so John and Richard thought, who is qualified to code and say what a genius does and how a genius does what he does?
Okay, sir.
So let's say you find a genius and she does something incredible. Should you be a scientist? Should you be a lawyer? Should you be an advocate? Should you be an engineer? Who is qualified to say how this genius does what she does?
Most of the time, the genius themselves may not know how they do what they do. So if you go and ask A.R. Rahman, how do you make such great music? He's not going to be able to give you code as to how does he come up with it.
So in Harvard, you have a course called modeling, analytical modeling, where they tried, like, they could model a Rahman or they could model a business genius. But what makes them qualified to model? What makes them capable of saying this is what the genius does? And John and Richard came up with a very simple criterion. They said, you're qualified and you are capable of modeling a genius if you can demonstrate that by your theory and by the conclusions you have come with, you can help yourself and other people become as good as that genius.
Okay, sir. So my last question, it's a fun question actually. So people who have out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences, do you think they evolve after these experiences, and do they look at life in a different way?
Absolutely. And part of our work is we want to get the people to evolve the same way without having to go through a near-death experience.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So if if you had to give, both of you had to give one piece of advice to people for future, for the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, give them a message of hope, of positivity, what would that be?
Well, our message has always been the same, Anurag. In fact, Harini, would like to sing maybe at the end of the call, but our message has always been the same: evolve, and results will follow. Don't visualize success. Don't visualize trying to have the world turn around, but see a future, visualize a future where you are a better person. And if you chase personal evolution, success will automatically come. But if you
don't go after money and all of that is important, but what if you put your focus and attention on evolving yourself personally, or personally going to the next league of and this time specifically, I mean during lockdown and possibly a little post that, we are having some time in our hands right now, and if there's something that you could do to immerse in learning
and capability development. One of the things we tell people is the COVID situation is not different from the artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence earlier took away this range of jobs, then it took away the hard skill jobs, then it took away the higher intellect jobs. But the recent studies shows it didn't take away any jobs. It just restructured jobs. Jobs of a particular...
So there are new skills that you require.
The new
you need to upgrade.
Yeah, so there are jobs that a computer can do, but then it has also opened jobs that only humans can do.
Because the COVID situation is also creating a polarity, Anurag. There are people that are losing jobs, but companies are also desperately looking for leadership right now to be able to have the right-minded people who have the right emotional maturity and sense, and the correct set of rounded skills in order to be able to handle the situation. So there's more demand now than ever before for really evolved individuals.
And people who have been focusing on evolving in the last few years will actually find themselves flexible and adaptable to be able to pick on a completely new set of jobs and functions right now.
Thank you so much. And Harini, before we get Antano to sing, get you to sing. And
there's a hero if you look inside your eyes.
That's Mariah Carey.
You don't have to be afraid of what you like. There's an answer if you reach into your soul, and the sorrow that you know will melt away. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth that a hero lies in you.
Thank you so much, Antano and Harini. I thoroughly enjoyed it, except that it's time for Antano to sing. So Antano, you can sing, it's okay. I can sing, anybody can sing. It's not a, you got talent and India's got talent. So Antano's got talent. So,
okay.
Yes.
God will make a way when there seems to be no way. He works in ways you cannot see. He will make a way for me. He will make a way. Oh, God will make a way when there seems to be no way. He works in ways you cannot see. God will make a way for me. God will make a way.
Beautiful. I've thoroughly enjoyed this Sunday afternoon, evening talking to both of you. And I look forward to talking to you very soon again on a Business World Wellbeing webinar very soon. And Kavi, you would like to ask any questions, any
No, sir.
comments?
No, sir. I just learned a lot.
You're being very kind. And Kavi is very sincere. That's the best quality. There are other qualities about him that I like. He writes well, but he's basically very sensitive and very sincere, and those are great qualities to have. So thank you, and keep doing the great work you do, Antano and Harini. Thank you, Kavi, and we look forward to interacting with you soon. Keep making the difference. Keep helping people become the best version of who they can, and I'm sure you will become the best version of who you are. God bless you. Thank you.